Nevertheless, Jesus does call these men, and he calls us, for that matter, to follow him. And I think it's important for us to understand what it was that Jesus was actually meaning. You see, in the ancient world, in the first century Jewish context, it wasn't altogether uncommon for religious leaders and religious teachers to have disciples, to have followers. But what that meant was that those followers, that they would literally, physically follow their teachers around. This wasn't like the kind of following that we might imagine now, like 21st century Americans, where, we can follow any number of people on social media or virtually. To follow someone, now it's kind of simply means to scroll through that person's tweets and images and sayings. And if we're so inclined, we can like something that they have to say. Or if we're really impressed, then we might even quote them by retweeting their statements. But that's not what fellowship meant then. Jesus' call to the disciples to follow him, it was just far more than that. His invitation to follow was in a physical sense as well as in a spiritual sense. It was an invitation to display repentance, to physically as well as spiritually change their life's direction and to move in a new location. Peter, Andrew, James, and John, they all understood the assignment, that this is why they dropped their physical nets, left their physical boats, left the physical shore, left the sea, left their jobs, left their families, left the life that they had known for some number of years, left their plans, left their address, and took up life with Jesus. Because that's what it meant to follow Jesus. And now listen, I would submit that this is still what it means to follow Jesus today. Now look, I realize as soon as I say this that the wheels kind of begin to turn for some of you, and you begin to ask, is he saying that for me to follow Jesus, that means that I have to leave everything behind? Can't I just follow Jesus right where I am in my current circumstances and my current situations? And I do certainly acknowledge the truth of that reality that yes, God can and does call us to remain right where we are. And that too can be a faithful way to live out our repentance and to live out our followership of Jesus. However, in this passage and in this moment, I think that we have to wrestle with the very legitimate possibility that faithfulness to Jesus might very well mean that you do have to leave your current situation. You do have to leave your current location, that you have to lay aside the nets, you have to lay aside the obligations and the paths that you have chosen for yourself and head in a direction of less certainty, of less viability, of less fame, of less promise, as the world measures promise, but in a direction marked by faith in the one who says to you, come, follow me. I fear that if we don't consider the radical call of this, the radical nature of this call, then we will be wooed into believing that God will simply baptize our own efforts and our plans and our self-actualized purposes for our self-centered lives. The Lord may well say to you, yes, child, the plans that you have, that they are my plans for your life. The direction that you are headed is the direction that I intended all along. But we do well to hold that with an open hand of surrender, trusting that if the Lord of all invites us to surrender all, then we will follow in the repenting footsteps of Peter and Andrew and James and John, and we will surrender our plans, we'll surrender our purposes and pursuits for the sake of God's kingdom.